to the emergency meeting of the Pawtucket School Committee here at the Pawtucket Administration Building for Tuesday, February 28th. First, we're going to call the meeting to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Here. Sardi? Here. Mr. Troutman?
Yeah.
Ms. Judy? Ms. Fernandez?
Here.
Ms. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Snell?
Here. May I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is to the right? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. All right, pursuant to the Rhode Island General Law 42-46C of the Open Meetings Act, the majority of the Pawtucket School Committee affirmatively voted to hold an emergency meeting to discuss the delayed reopening of Henry J. Winters Elementary School due to an unexpected occurrence related to a public safety issue that requires immediate action to protect members of the public, and to discuss issues that created the need for an emergency meeting. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Superintendent Ramsey.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this informational meeting. We have, as you know, had a second heating coil rupture at the Henry J. Winters School. And we have been working with the OPM colliers, architects, engineers, and construction professionals. At this time, we would like to share with you the information that we have had since the second burst. I'm going to introduce Jared from Colliers. Jared.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. My name is Jared Jackson. I am a senior project manager at Colliers Project Leaders, the owner's project manager for this Pawtucket School Department. I am joined here with our team of experts. I have Kathy Ellithorpe, the principal of SLAM Architects, Brian Wetzel, project manager with CES Engineering, Bill Bryan, the principal in charge at Gilbane, Steve Lemo, engineer with Hollowell Engineering, and as well as some additional team members in the audience as needed for questions. So we are here with our team to go over a timeline of events, an explanation of the system, and some of the things that have happened with it over the past few weeks, some of the safety mitigation actions that have been taken and are being taken, as well as some of the next steps. So with that, I will turn it over to our team, and I'm going to let Bill Bryan talk first. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I think I should, I want to start with the first incident that occurred on Saturday, February 4th. We were notified of that incident the morning of February 6th. You'll recall we engaged specialty contractors at that time to address moisture mitigation, as well as a certified industrial hygienist to determine the extent of impact, and a forensic engineer, Hollowell Engineering, who's represented this evening by Principal Steve Lemo and another associate, Bill Alsahas. The forensic engineer visited the site on Friday, February 10th, to inspect the coil, observe the installed conditions, and to oversee the removal of the coil, and took the coil for further inspection. Johnson Controls, who is a subcontractor to the mechanical contractor, Peregrine Mechanical. Peregrine Mechanical is the firm that Gilbane has the contract with. Johnson Controls provided trend data for the particular unit where the heating coil burst for the time of the incident, and that information was provided to Hollowell Information for their further analysis. So I'd like to have Steve and or Bill come up and speak for a moment and address their findings at that time.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Lemo. I'm a senior mechanical engineer with Hollowell Engineering. we were asked to come out or go out and take a look at the coil issues by Bill and Gilbane. We visited the first site, actually, Bill also visited the first one as I was out of town. But Bill went out and looked at the first one when that was in the process of being removed. Observed the conditions and talked with folks that were found the actual leak. Based on that, we had reached a preliminary conclusion that there was a window left open and potentially contributed significantly to the failure of the coil. When the second freeze up occurred, we requested additional trending information from Johnson Controls and from the manufacturer of the equipment, Dakin, to further investigate try and further investigate what physically transpired. It seems that the issue is more, since it was a second unit, it seems the issue is not isolated to one unit nor one simple event. Currently, we're in the process of developing a protocol. Actually, the engineers of record are developing a protocol for the testing of the systems and the integration of the controls and the equipment itself to ensure that whatever the cause was is identified and corrected in those two systems. That testing hopefully will go on in the very near future. The protocol will be submitted to all the parties involved for their input before the actual work is performed. The date for that we have not determined yet. The intent is to do it after hours, so it does not interrupt school operations.
Well, I mean, I want to know if we wanted to have everyone speak, because they all have,
Well, I think the question I'm gonna ask, based on the answer, is relevant to a question I'll have down the road.
Okay.
So, Steve, you said that the preliminary assumption was a window was left open until the second unit failed.
Correct.
So that was what everybody's understanding of the cause of the first failure was, up until the point that the second one blew, was an open window?
That was a significant contributing factor as far as we knew. Again, we were told the window was left open. It was directly adjacent to the coil that froze. We were not asked to do further investigation at that point. Then the second one froze a couple of weeks later, and that's where we're getting now more in depth into what is physically transpiring with these units.
So, just so I'm clear, the window, did we confirm that the window was left open?
It was reported that way, but I do not know that anybody confirmed it too.
If I can answer.
all right, Bill, please.
So, Mr. Charbonneau, at the time, a window was found open, but it was not known if that window was open at the time of the incident. It was found open on that Monday morning. So, but in the absence of any other, as I indicated before, in the absence of any other data that indicated any components of the system malfunctioning, the preliminary conclusion was that that was a contributing factor to it. And I know the questions were asked previously about doing further testing, but there wasn't an indication of what other testing could be done, because there was an indication of a failure.
And I appreciate that, Bill, but this is our second meeting about winters. The first one, when we were told about the first incident, I don't recall that anybody mentioned the cause being a window open.
No, you're correct.
Okay,
It-
so, but that's what the team addressing the problem at Winters was working under the assumption that it was caused by a window being open. So when I asked at the last meeting of a way to test these units, that shouldn't have been done after the second failure. That should have been ongoing from our request based off the failure of the first unit. And what I'm hearing in the first 10 minutes of this tonight is essentially that the concerns we were, or the questions we were asking at the previous meeting were not even considered by the team addressing the problem. And that becomes a real concern for me.
So my best explanation, I'm sorry. Yes, as Steve indicated, there was a thought that the contributing factor to the failure of this coil could be an open window. But it was also my understanding from the engineers that it could be some form of an anomaly, and they didn't know. That's why they took the equipment down to look at it, but they didn't find a manufacturing defect, if you will. The question was raised before about testing, like pressure testing and so forth. It's not a pressurized system, so there isn't testing to be done. I can't speak to the sophistication of the design of, the technical design of all the components of the system. It would be better for the engineers of record, the designers, to speak to that, perhaps to explain what type of information is needed in order to further determine a course of action for investigation beyond what was done initially. But all I can provide as an answer is what I said before. There was no indication of a malfunction of equipment. But with the second incident, that's what the engineers determined. It gave them a path to pursue that they didn't have previously. So perhaps it would be more helpful to have those folks speak to that issue for you.
That's kind of what I want to do. The presentation, but if any member does have a specific question for someone that's at the podium, I'm gonna have to allow it, but I do think, Mr. Charbonneau, when you hear the whole presentation, I understand your concern, but I think we do have to hear from the whole team on how this is being presented. Ms. Manolo?
Okay, so I do want to make it clear, and it had never been said that I know it was said that they thought a window was left open. But I checked with our director of facilities, who checked with our custodial staff, and that there were no windows left open. So it seems like what we said had fallen on deaf ears, because I asked Colliers, I asked you, Bill, I asked anybody who would listen to me at that point in time, and I've been at Winters from the first rupture through this one, that those coils needed to be tested. I asked you the first time, what was the guarantee that those coils would not break? And I'm saying this, not that we have not addressed this since, and you have a presentation to make. I'm addressing this because our parents are watching, our teachers are watching, and they need to know that we went through as much as we did in order to protect them and to protect our children. And, the bottom line is, we said, I asked you a couple of times, and I was told, no, we weren't going to test it. So, I understand you didn't know what you needed to test, but I did know that we had 6 ruptures in a coil with 6 rings. So, the evidence was there. So now what's going on, and you can continue, but I do want to clear our maintenance staff. A window was not left open. We never thought it was. We do respect our people and how they care for our property. And, I just want to make that clear to everybody.
And I just want to respond to that because I don't disagree with anything that Joanne has said. And I want to be clear too. It was never stated with certainty that a window was left open. It was identified as a possibility. There was no way of knowing it because there's no cameras that could identify it. And it was at least 2 days after the event when a window was found open. But the proximity of the open window to a return air coil was the only return air vent that was the only source of air to the unit. If a window was open, it could have, as was indicated, led to the freezing of the coil. So it was in the absence of other information that people were looking at that as the most likely source, but not the final one, because I think it would be more helpful for others to speak to this, because as I've told you before, I'm not the engineer. I'm just trying to provide insights for you.
I know we will move on, but Bill, just so I'm clear, my concern is I never heard that an open window was even a possibility of the cause until Steve mentioned it tonight. So now you can see some of the gaps in information, I guess, that start to become a concern. If our team that's addressing the problem at Winters is working on a theory that members of this committee aren't even aware of as being a possibility.
Yeah. Superintendent, please, then we have to move on, but I do want you to, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. The idea of an open window was brought up in the very, very, very beginning and almost immediately discounted as a viable opportunity or a viable cause, which is why it was discounted and not really investigated at all, because it was not viable. There was not another single thing in that classroom that froze except for a pipe above the ceiling. We had a sink in that room the pipes did not freeze. We have fire suppression in that room and those that did not freeze. So a window was almost immediately discounted as a potential cause for the failure of the pipe above the ceiling line, which is why a forensic, and we've been waiting for the forensic report, which is why we've been working so hard to put that building back together. But a window was almost immediately discounted in those conversations.
Can I ask for clarification? Almost discounted by who? Because it doesn't sound,
Everybody around the table.
it
Mr.
doesn't
Kelly.
sound like the team had
Well,
discounted it.
Mr. Steve was never at the table.
Oh, so let's talk timeline, okay? We're rolling back the time 3+ weeks ago when that was identified as a possibility by some people, but at that point in time, shortly thereafter, as the superintendent said, it was brought in, the certainty of it was never known. So could that be the cause? No, so it was considered, the term that I used was an anomaly, and no one ever disagreed with that because no one could produce data of what caused that particular coil to freeze the way it did. The second incident, unfortunately, has produced the data. And I think it would be just helpful for everyone to really understand what that means now and the steps that are being taken. Because I think you will hear that all the right steps are being taken, not only to protect the building and make it safe for everyone, but to correct the condition long-term. There is a process to go through here. So, I really don't have any more to address myself. I think that, Kathy Ellithorpe from SLAM and the design team should speak to that.
Thank you. I'm Kathy Oglethorpe from SLAM Collaborative. I do have Brian Wetzel, lead engineer from CES Engineers. And I just want to reiterate that, we've come as the designers of the building as soon as there was an issue, and we've maintained our connection to the issues and working through it with you to try and come to resolution with really two main focuses. The first one was to try and figure out what's going on with the building. But the second one, which is the most important to right now, is to make sure that the building's safe and that children can go back to learning. We understand that that is imperative and that the building has to be, things needed to be done to the system to make the building safe for occupancy now with heat and with fresh air. So I'm going to let Brian take you through some information about how, in general, very high level, how the system works and some of the issues that that we're dealing with and that we are finding ways to mitigate.
Again, my name is Brian Wetzel, project manager with Consulting Engineering Services. We've got a couple slides here. The big picture of my presentation is I'd like to explain to you the HVAC systems that are in the building, get a little bit better understanding of them. I'll then explain what happened to call the coil to freeze, and then we have some recommendations for you. So on this diagram here, you'll see there's a unit on the roof, VRF condensing unit that provides air conditioning through refrigerant piping that goes down to what I've colored as a blue coil in the VRF indoor unit. In that indoor unit, in the VRF indoor unit is again, the refrigerant cooling coil that I've colored blue, a supplier fan, and the next coil, it's a red, is a heating coil. The heating coil is connected to hot water piping through a central heating plant back to gas-fired boilers. This VRF indoor unit sits above the ceiling. There's a picture of it, one that was being installed during construction. You can see the ductwork and diffusers. So what it does is it sits above the ceiling. It circulates air through each classroom, provides ventilation, provides cooling, air conditioning, and heating. The event that happened is the cooling was called for and or cooling was activated. And the temperature that was provided by the refrigerant coil in the VRF indoor unit was extremely low temperature. We have readings that it was down to 17 to 20 degrees. The systems are designed to provide air at 50 to 55 degrees. So something really odd and strange has happened with the unit to provide that cool of an air. We have been consulting in the last 24 hours with all sorts of people, and I'm not coming to this conclusion by myself. We have a lot of data. We've been talking to the manufacturer, temperature control contractor, and the data we have all concludes this. And I want to say that we are all just as perplexed to understand why this unit provided such cold air. I tell you all of that because we don't know why, and we don't have immediate solutions for you to solve that problem. That's an air conditioning problem. We are working on it. I'm going to show you that we have a game plan in place. But since we don't know immediate solutions, we have some interim solutions. So next slide, please. We want to make sure we can get the children back to the school safe. And what the simplest solution is, let's lock out the compressors at the VRF condensing units on the roof. If those compressors are locked out, we cannot provide air conditioning and we cannot freeze a coil. Now at face, as an engineer, I would say that's all we need to do. But we've thought about this and thought about this with a team of people and said, what else can we do to your system to give you other levels of mitigating actions that prevent anything from happening? So we have yesterday added propylene glycol to the heating system. There's now a 30% propylene glycol water solution in the heating system. The heating system was water before, which freezes at 32 degrees. Propylene glycol has a freezing temperature below 0 degrees. So we've protected the coil from freezing if something happens that we can't imagine happens at this point. The contractors have been going out to visually inspect all the hot water coils to see if they can see something that might cause something to rupture again. And we've added alarms through the temperature control system and expanded the list of people who should be notified in case we get some more alarm conditions to occur. So these are our immediate mitigation actions to get back into school. What does it do? It provides ventilation to each classroom and provides heating to each classroom. There's no air conditioning in the internal. We need to work on how to get air conditioning back for you. Next slide. So the next steps that we are doing is analyzing data. We have streams and streams of data that are saved down that we need to go through. There is a lot of wiring and connections that need to kind of go through and troubleshoot. We need to troubleshoot sequences of operation, and we need to investigate the operations of the equipment, specifically that VRF condensing unit system. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this moment, we can open it up to questions. I'm hoping that the presentation that was just given to everybody gives a good timeline of events that have happened, some of the data that we have acquired, and explained the reasoning that we have come to with some of the safety mitigation solutions that we have implemented and are continuing to implement to help ensure that this building is safe for all of the students.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Brian, you mentioned the data led you to the conclusion about the VRF system.
Yep.
That's the data from the second coil or the first coil?
Both coils.
Both coils. Were you weren't able to make that determination just based off the data from the first coil?
Ourselves, we did not have access at that point to the building management system, and we were only giving a small snippet of information regarding that first event.
Right, because we thought.
Yep.
We thought a window was left open.
And in that information, well, there's not enough data to kind of come to this. We've now got 3 weeks of data that we're going through for all sorts of units to come to that conclusion. Yeah. Yep.
Ms. Benoit.
If I can make a request, can JCI come up and explain the data that's being provided to us?
Sure. I'm George Salome, Installation Manager for Johnson Controls Local Office. But I'll go into great detail on how the system works. Johnson Controls has a system that interfaces with this VRF system we've been hearing about. There's a thermostat located in each classroom that anybody that's been in the school has probably seen. So with that thermostat, we control, we send signals for the VRF system as far as does a space need heating or cooling. And part of that, we have a server. The server has many what we call points in the system that are trended. And that's the data that the team is referring to. I've been involved, and Rick, who works for me, has been involved, and we've provided quite a bit of data. We can go back from what I can see as far as mid-December. A question was asked to me yesterday in one of the meetings, so I did check that, and that's when our server was installed and partially commissioned. So at that point, it was recording the trend data. And the trend data we have are things like the temperature in the room, the discharge air temperature. There was a sensor in the diagram that was on the screen earlier. We also have information as far as our commands to the unit, and what's going on with that hot water coil, and as well as the system that's supplying the hot water to that coil.
Of course, we all know safety is the main concern. So in regards to safety, are we only concerned about the coils, or are there other things that we're concerned about? I just wanted to kind of check that first.
So this is a very standard hot water heating system that's installed in thousands of buildings. We are only worried about the hot water coil and the VRF system because the DX air conditioning coil is the one that dropped the temperature down to freeze that coil.
Okay, so it is safe to say that when we talk about safety, we're only talking about those coils in those heating units, correct?
And that,
Well, because we
I'm
talk
not too
about
sure I
safety, we
understand.
can't
Yeah.
allow the kids in the school because of safety. Is this the only problem that we're talking about in regards to safety?
I think I
Are there
understand.
other issues that are going on that we aren't aware of?
I think I understand your question. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you want to speak first? So in regards to safety, we have been working over the past 3 weeks or so to get this building as safe as possible. And we have done investigations into what the issue, how this heating coil burst. As of right now, what we want to ensure is that we do not have another burst heating coil. We don't want that.
So in regards to safety, the only thing we're focusing on is the coils. Everything else in the building is fine. There are no other issues. It's just the coils. Because it's gonna, the reason I'm asking about it is because I know eventually we're gonna lead into the conversation about the students coming back to school and the plans that were in place. So we keep saying safety, but no one just says, oh, we're just concerned about the coils. They talk about safety. Is it just the coils that we're concerned about in regards to safety in the school building right now?
So I understand where you're going. No, the answer is no. I think that the engineers here at this podium this evening are talking about the major cause, the root cause to what happened. But throughout this process, it has been environmental safety is equally as important. So we have gone through various levels of moisture mitigation, moisture testing, air quality testing, disinfecting, and all of our products are everything that's in that building, that is our responsibility. Everything that is in that building, that is Gilbane's responsibility, has gone through with many environmental hygienists that have come through. Another environmental hygienist is coming through to make sure that there's no mold, there's no moisture, there's no air quality concerns, that all of our things have been cleaned and disinfected throughout. We were clean, disinfected, and ready to go with passing all air quality and moisture mitigation and mold tests on Saturday. We were ready to go. And then we had this coil. So this coil interrupted or impacted 3 additional classrooms, and those have been immediately. So the impact of this one was much different than the impact of the first one, because I have to say, one of our IT workers, one of our servers went offline. It caused a server alarm to go to the IT office, and the IT office turned on the cameras and called maintenance. And we were there within minutes to be able to address the safety of that. All the rugs have been removed, so there's no moisture beneath the floor. All the rugs have been replaced, the ones that the little kids sit on, and all the things that everyone touches has been cleaned.
Well, I think, and thank you for that, but I'm talking about the whole school in general. So, rugs have only been replaced, I'm assuming, in the academic 3 levels, correct? Have they been replaced anyplace else in the building?
No.
Okay. Moisture tests, have they been done throughout the whole entire building? And will they be redone again before the students come back?
If I may, the original event that happened,
Mhm.
the coil sprung a leak water came down and it started ponding out
Yeah.
throughout that area. So we have looked throughout the building to ensure that there are no other areas where water has infiltrated. On that third, second, and first, I just call them the classroom wings on the north side of the building. That is where the water infiltrated. So the gypsum board.
So the rest
so-
of the building is, except for the academic,
Mhm.
3 floors, the rest of the building is safe.
It
that-
was not affected
There
by
was not
this event.
affected at all, okay, and we can clearly say that it is safe. Cause I guess my concern is, I know that, and I was in attendance of one of the meetings, that, acting superintendent Ramsey mentioned that she had backup plans, triple plans.
Yes.
And one of my concerns was if, we're on vacation and these, how many rooms don't come through. If something happens, like I mentioned in the meeting, we can't depend on all this. What's the backup plan? So the reason I'm asking about safety is if the rest of the building is safe, why haven't we implemented some of that planning that they had planned on to have the students in the other part of the building? So that's why I was asking about the safety aspect, because I don't want the students in an unsafe building. But if the building is actually safe and there was a plan that if, what is it, like 9 rooms were affected originally, say something happened and God forbid there was a flu at Gilbane and no one came in on school vacation and none of those 9 rooms got touched. I was told that in one of those meetings by Ms. Ramsey that she had a backup plan. She referred to Bob. He mentioned what rooms they were going to use. So I'm at the point where, yes, okay, we're fixing that problem. But bigger than that is our students and our staff are not in the building teaching the students. And the kids need to get back. So at this point, I need to know why, if the rest of the building is so safe, we're not implementing those plans that were supposed to be in place.
Because after the second coil burst, we absolutely wanted to make sure that the system was functioning correctly and that we had a mitigation process so it didn't occur in any other portion of the building. So we do have a backup plan for rooms that were not turned back over to us due to the water damage of the 23 rooms initially. So we did have a backup plan for the other section of the building, so those restoration pieces can go on. But when the second coil, and we were ready to go, and when the second coil burst, obviously everything had to come to a screeching halt because then we had to truly stop and look and to say, is this going to happen anywhere else in this building? And so that's why we shut everything down and continued on distance learning.
But I'm sitting here being told that the rest of the building is safe. In the winters, we received a notice that there'll be virtual learning tomorrow. There'll be virtual learning Thursday. Why are they virtual learning? They just said the rest of the building is safe. I just asked them. They just said it.
Ideally, we bring back students to their classrooms and we would allow Gilbane and everyone in that building to completely test every coil. So all the coils need to be tested. All the coils, and those are the classrooms that aren't affected. So all coils are being tested in every room of the
But
building.
we asked them to test these coils prior at the last meeting. Am I not right? Miss Bonolo, Mr. Charbonneau, I believe they were the ones who stated, we need these looked at. And it just came up now. So, I'm not a mechanical engineer. I don't know the mechanics, but I am a mom and I know how important it is for children to go to school. And we're just getting so many different stories and it doesn't seem like we're really getting the whole truth here. And we need to get these kids back in school. And like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was told, because I specifically asked, because I was told that school vacation was great. And I stated on that Monday, if nothing gets done and those teams, those rooms are not freed up, do we have a plan? Yes, we have a plan. Okay, tomorrow's Wednesday. It seems like they know what the situation is in the wing. Someone is standing here right now telling me the rest of the building is safe. I'm being told by you, they still need to check the coils, but they just told me the rest of the building was safe. So what's the story? We need to get these kids back to school.
So
No, I'm done.
it's okay.
Do you have the answer for that?
I just wanted to mention that when this original event happened, the water that spread to a significant amount of classrooms. So over those 3 weeks, we worked to clean up, mitigate, and make those classrooms safe. Remove all of the damaged wet wallboard, any wet carpet, ensure that there is no mold or air quality issues within the building. When I refer to the rest of the building being safe, what I meant was, and what I'm saying is, we did not have any water damage in the rest of the building. We were not concerned about any mold or air quality or wet damaged items in the rest of the building. We came up with multiple contingency plans depending on how many rooms we were going to be able to have turned over after all of these rooms were cleaned up. We had plans in place if needed to move children to the other side of the building. And with the second coil bursting, our safety aspect that we are investigating is to make sure that this does not happen again. So we have been implementing the 4 steps that were provided before to ensure that this isn't something that can happen again.
So what still needs to be done is the rest of the building, besides coils being checked, the air quality needs to be checked again and the moisture needs to be checked again. So we haven't proven that this complete building or the other half of the building is completely safe for our students to go in yet, correct? Sharon?
So again, that the second half of the building did not get affected by any water damage. So the safety aspects regarding mold, regarding any water infiltration did not happen on that side of the building. And
Second time either. So why aren't our children, why aren't we setting up rooms? Because you're saying to me that it is safe. Are you not? Like, yeah, we're not gonna let the kids go back in a building that isn't safe. So is it safe or isn't it safe? Are there tests that need to be done or are there tests not need to be done? When and how do we determine if this building is safe for these students to get back into school?
yes, so we have performed tests with our hygienist or Gilbane's hygienist to ensure that all of the rooms throughout the school are safe. In addition to that, we are implementing all of the steps that were provided to ensure that it is safe heating coil wise and that nothing will happen with any further heating coils to ensure more safety.
So if we inspect the rest of the heating oil coils on the other side of the building and in the rest of the rooms, our students can go back into that building and they can have makeshift classrooms. But
Yeah.
why when we asked the first time, weren't these coils checked? I just don't understand that.
First, with respect to the inspection of coils, that's in process. Based upon the direction that was recently provided by the design engineers that they've outlined the steps that need to be done to ensure the safety conditions of the building. The inspection of those coils will be completed tomorrow. The balance of those coils.
Of the whole
The
building,
entire
the
building.
entire building.
There are
Okay.
68 coils in the building. They will all be inspected.
And when did they
Wait.
start? I'd love to know when
They
they started.
Started yesterday.
So they started yesterday and they're gonna be finished tomorrow.
Yes.
So if these were checked last week, and we had a coil go, or if we didn't have, maybe the coil wouldn't have gone on Saturday. Maybe,
So-
maybe not.
Yeah. I don't think this type of inspection, which is looking for damage to a coil from having exposure to freezing, would have prevented a coil unless the coil was found to have an indication that it had been subject to freezing. And then it would have been isolated so that it couldn't have water flowing through it, so it couldn't rupture and freeze and cause a problem. The design engineers would be better to perhaps to speak to that, but the inspection that's being done now is to determine whether a coil has been, its integrity has been compromised in any
Okay.
way.
So let me, I guess, ask my question again. Our students can go to school on Thursday in their own building. If tomorrow, as they're checking the coils, there are people there setting up makeshift classrooms in the rooms that the coils are all set.
I don't think I can answer the question. I think
who can?
that's because I don't think it's a decision that the construction manager.
So who
can-
can? I
can
just
make.
asked it. I didn't say you had to answer it.
That would be superintendent that would answer that question. I believe she has a presentation at the end of all this stuff, the recommendations or anything, correct? So I believe you are gonna answer that question, so
Well, I think
Oh.
we're in the middle of the conversation right now, and I think because we're in the middle of the conversation, we should just kind of keep rolling with it and get the answers that, we're asking. you know?
are you showing, hold on. Tim has still the floor. Can you answer that one specific question on what date you're thinking about sending the kids in? Because Mr. Charbonneau has a question to go, Joanne has a question to go. So
My
please answer.
recommendation would not to bring students or teachers back into that building until we have 100% certification that every single coil has been inspected, that the glycol is working through the heating system, and that the environmental hygienist has come in and completely and 100% certified that building. So my recommendation would most likely be after that happens, and I'm looking at the end of business day on Thursday for those 100% guarantees from this group.
Or, Miss.
No, no,
okay.
let Mr. Charbonneau
Yep,
go.
Miss-
Brian, we have a lot of data from the system. Do the systems, they don't have any real-time alarms? In other words, our IT department fortunately caught one because their server went down and triggered the alarm. But our systems themselves don't have an alarm that would notify our maintenance team?
JCI.
So the answer to that question is yes. The system is capable of alarms. We worked with your IT group yesterday to configure the final piece, which was the mail server. So with the system, we can send an email as well as a text.
So. But that wasn't set up prior. You worked with the IT department yesterday.
Correct. Yep, that is correct.
Is it a cost add-on?
No.
Okay,
No.
so the system's been in for how long?
I don't have the exact date.
But let's agree it's been at least 5 months.
The system would not be ready to send alarms going back 5 months. From what I could see, it was probably,
When do you think would have been the first time it would have been able to send alarm?
potentially late December, because we were still working through, so the last part of the construction phase is always completing the controls. We have to let everybody else finish 100% of their work in order for us to finish our work 100%.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying approximately the end of December.
So do you have an explanation for the gap then? If, like, given the money invested in that building, given the population that inhabits that building, why would we wait on alarms that potentially, could notify us of the situation in a way that we could get people out of there safe?
what happens if you start setting up alarms before the system is actually complete? What you get is alarm overload until all of the bugs, if you will, and the kinks are worked out of the system. What you get is you get too many alarms. Many times, we initiate the alarm notification feature only to be asked to shut it back off. Because the system is still going through final stages, fine tuning. And what we've had, we turned it on as of yesterday, and I was asked by Peregrine Mechanical, who I'm subcontracted through, why we get so many alarms. We did mention it yesterday, that there was still going to be some nuisance alarms. And what you get when that happens is you get the tendency to ignore them, all of them. So what we did today, we went through and we fine-tuned what gets an alarm and who it goes to. Okay.
Right. So we were able to accomplish that in a day. So had we done it in December, when the system was ready to deliver alarms, even if we had to tweak it along the way, I'm concerned that we invest all of this taxpayer money. We have these children attending this school, and we're not, God knows how much damage has been done there. From a financial perspective, we're fortunate that both times there haven't been students in there. So I just think that, this should have been in place, and maybe it's on us. This should have been in place when the system was, if we're gonna start using the system in December, we should have notification that there's a malfunction with it before we walk in there on a Monday morning,
Agreed, but that is typically a function of final turnover. So
which still hasn't occurred yet.
that is correct. Yep.
Got it.
So I think I want to try to, I think I know what Ms. Grant's looking for, and I'd like to try to explain. So 3 weeks ago was the first occurrence, and it took out a whole wing, all 3 floors. So after that, Gilbane and all of the subcontractors went in and they cleaned the rooms, they repaired everything, they replaced walls, they put on new cove base molding, Clean Care came in, they cleaned everything out. And what they were able to deliver us at that time was all but 3 rooms, which the acting superintendent Ramsey had located elsewhere within the building in the 5th grade wing. So that left us with 3 rooms not being used. So we were told at that time that those 3 rooms, 2 of those 3 rooms would be done in another week, which they'll be done this week, which is the 2nd week. However, in the meantime, we had another eruption of the coil, and there were no windows open. So people started looking further as to why. And what they found was that when the thermostats in the rooms hit a certain temperature, the air conditioning kicked on. And when the air conditioning kicked on, it froze the pipe, which ruptured the coil that was bringing the heat into the classroom. So that's where the water came from. So the second time, that only took out 3 rooms and a little bit of a mess in the hallway. So 2 of those rooms have since been taken care of. They've removed any sheetrock that needs to be done. They'll be painted. There'll be new cove base molding. Everything will be cleaned, the windows, the floors, just as all of the other rooms have been done. So now that will leave us with 2 rooms, ground 0 and ground 01. And they're both on the 3rd floor at the end of the wing that are unable to use those two rooms will be relocated. So tomorrow, so because they realized it was freezing, they went up on the roof to that condenser that they showed the picture of, and they shut off the air conditioning system on that condenser. So the condenser would be unable to freeze the coils. So I said, and they said that they had to use a password to get into it. And I said, is there any way, is it totally foolproof that nobody can turn that condenser back on and turn the AC back on? So what I was told was that in order to turn that AC back on, they physically had to go back up onto the roof. They had to turn on the condenser and they had to reprogram the condenser to make the AC work again. So without any programming, I could turn on that machine and it wouldn't force the AC on. And that's what I was concerned about because I didn't want another coil to happen. So as it stands now, as of tomorrow, all of our coils should be inspected. All of our rooms, with the exception of 2, will be done. They've taken out the AC unit, its capabilities. They put glycol into the system. They have alarms going to our custodial staff and our director of facilities. So if any of the rooms reach a certain temperature, and I think they said it was 50 or 40, if the rooms reach that temperature, they will get an automatic alarm that will bring our custodians into the building to look to see what is happening. So one of the things I did ask, because I am very concerned about the children too, and I asked George, if you had a child and they were going to this school and this is what was done, would you send your child? And what did you tell me, George? So at this point, there's always unknowns, but they're working to find out why exactly the compressor was doing what it was doing. But at least it's disabled now, and it shouldn't be able to interrupt our course of study. And it'll be summer or April break when they go in. So now we'll be quiet. So that's what I understand.
Joanne answered part of my question, but I'm curious about the gentleman from JCI said something about the system's been programmed or set up to get alarms for certain things. I'm wondering what are those things and who it goes to? I know Joanne said the custodial staff. I'm wondering what is the system? What is going to be triggered? What's going to trigger alarms in that school and who do those go to? And are they going to have enough time to prevent something from happening?
Sure. So there's typically a list of alarms that is specified as part of the contract documents. And those are typically things like the room temperature. So if the temperature in a specific room gets a certain level above or below its set point, there's an alarm that's triggered. And that would be primarily what the standard alarms would be for this system at Winters. There's also alarms for the boiler system. If the hot water temperature that's being supplied for the heating coils gets below a certain percentage below its set point, there would be an alarm generated. In this system, those would be your typical and standard alarms. So what we've done at the request of the team is we've added one more, which was not part of the original design, and that is that discharge air temperature. So one thing I want to point out, there was a question on generating alarms. Just so you know, the night of the first coil failure, the standard alarms would not have triggered. Yeah, just so it's clear. It's all based on the room temperature and its deviation from set point. And if it triggered, it probably would have triggered after the event. On this one here too, on the most current one, the same situation. If you look at the, the actual zone temperature at the time when we suspect the coil let go, the room was within its set point. Because the temperature drops at the unit much faster than the entire room does. You know, just to be clear with that.
How are the alarms helpful if you're saying it wouldn't have helped you?
Well, this was a
What
very
is-
unique
tell-
situation. So like, was mentioned earlier because, and again, just the, the temperatures that were seen from the VRF system were significantly lower than expected. And that's part of the ongoing investigation. And that system is not under my system's control. It has its own onboard controllers, and it controls whether it's heating or cooling. The actual functionality of those VRF systems is self-contained.
I think you're looking for some more specific, I think. Yeah, so what we're monitoring
Thanks.
is a space temperature and the discharge air temperature sensor. On that diagram, there's a temperature sensor on the ductwork right after the coils. And that's an alarm point now, as well as the boilers. So if any of those go into alarm mode, they're identified, and what they're gonna be doing is shutting down the pumps.
Okay.
They can do that remotely right away, is shut the pumps down and then go and react to the room.
Who can do that remotely? Who does that?
I, this.
Thank you.
The staff, I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I heard there were
Yeah.
alarms, right?
Yeah.
And then there are
Yeah.
people who are gonna be notified.
So I wasn't early, I didn't answer your
Yep.
entire question. So we worked with the school system and the construction team, and we came up with a list of email addresses and phone numbers.
Okay.
That will get these alarms both via email and text.
So that's a custodial step. That Ms. Ramsey. Okay, thank you. It's not me. Don't call me.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that the members of this committee be made all the reports around this be made available to us. Our internal reports, any hygienic findings, so that we have that documentation as well. Because I'm left to think that this could have, and maybe not, but what I'm hearing today sounds like reasonable, rational steps that we're taking to mitigate a problem from whatever it is we're putting in the system, the glycol in. But why did we have to have a second one burst to come to these rational kind of mitigation steps? And I think I know the answer, and I think we all know the answer. It's because we weren't both, our team wasn't functioning as a team after the first unit. We were asking certain questions from this committee of our partners, and I don't know that was being embraced and reviewed based off the way the committee was asking it. I sat at the last meeting and we talked about this team and how you assemble great teams because we knew it was going to be a challenge. And we all agreed that, you know, the teams are tested in trying times. But I can't sit here tonight and think that part of my team was leveling with us at the last meeting. I think we expressed concerns about inspecting all the coils. It was never mentioned then about a window being open. It seems like that's what we used as a working thesis for the problem with the first coil. But that's why we're here tonight. Because I think we assumed something. And I certainly thought after I left the last meeting, when we addressed the first coil bursting, that the coils were all gonna be inspected, that some of what I heard tonight as mitigation steps was gonna occur back then. But it seems like that's not what we said and what we did are two different things. And I'm concerned about that most of all. Because we're the ones have to answer to the community. We're the ones who have to answer to the students there. And it's our responsibility to get them back in school. And I think if we could have prevented this after the first one and we didn't, because we weren't listening to each other and embracing each other's suggestions and thoughts, then we got some work to do.
Mr. Charbonneau. I regret that you feel that people perhaps weren't listening. People were listening. I personally had conversations with, in particular, the forensic engineer, because that's who we had the most interactions with at the time. And we did discuss what other types of testing could be done. The context of my questions to them, quite frankly, were in the context of the questions that I was being asked, which included around water flow and system pressures and so forth. And as you've heard from JCI, those types of monitorings and alarms don't exist. And we discussed, well, what was explained to me is that there wasn't data that led them to another direction until the second event occurred. I can't get into the specifics because I'm not smart enough. I'm not an engineer to address why that might be the case, but that is what transpired. No one was being ignored. No one wasn't being listened to. It's just that there was an absence of data, as I understood it, to help people make any other determinations.
I appreciate it, and I don't want to go back and forth with you, but we asked a week and a half ago to inspect the coils. We were told tonight that the process started yesterday and will be finished tomorrow. So I would have expected to hear, that's the second time we're going to inspect the coils. We heard you at the last meeting 2 weeks ago. We did an inspection of the coils. We found no issues. Another anomaly occurred and we burst another coil, but we're gonna go back today and tomorrow and relook at them a second time. What I heard tonight was we looked at them yesterday, today, and we're gonna finish up tomorrow, but that's the first time we're looking at them. And this committee asked our team to inspect the coils.
I did 3 weeks ago.
Anything else? Mr. Charbonneau?
Just one last thought. In these, I've seen, and I'm sure people have it, in commercial buildings, these bladders kind of affixed to the roof. If the roof is leaking, there's a bladder up there. There's a hose that comes down and it's either fed into either outside or into a larger containment bucket. Would those bladders provide any additional security, or is it even feasible to put them up there in the event that another anomaly occurred down the road and a third coil go? At least we know there's some time.
That's a good thought, because I've seen those as well. The hot water system is under pressure, and when there's a leak, it kind of shoots across the room. So there's not a way to gather that leak, so to speak. And there's also, it could leak from either side, so it's unpredictable to know which way which way it would shoot.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, before I turn it over to Superintendent, I want to thank the team. This committee is right to be frustrated. I was in the room the other day, yesterday, with the team and you guys saw a side of me that I was actually surprised. I gotta tell you, whoever mentioned that that one of the causes was a window open. If that was mentioned at yesterday's meeting, you would have seen, uh, I don't even know why that was mentioned. That has been debunked, that's not an issue. And I cannot believe that was said in this meeting. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was said for a professional report, but the window was not a cause of what happened on the first time. The second time, when we heard what happened to one of our coils, one of the things I said at the meeting with you fine folks is the reason why I got so mad, but I'm so happy we have all 7 of us here. No one could answer, 6, sorry, it's 6. When I asked a question and everyone became completely silent, nobody spoke. And I said, someone needs to answer this question because we are the face of the parents of the 530 students that because of a technical problem, we are not able to use that beautiful building. Those students deserve to be in that class, in those classrooms. Those 5th graders have been through enough. That is the class that is going through 2 years of COVID. That's the class that had the older winters. They have a brand new winters and they're not using it because of mechanical problems that should have been checked out. There was a request for all of the coils to be looked at. And with that, I do have a question though, Bill. How many of the coils need to be seen or investigated?
The data that I saw indicated 68 coils in total. The entire 3rd floor has been done. Half of the 2nd floor has been done. Some of the coils on the 1st floor, because it's being done by system. And where the coils are, that system, that condenser unit is the system I'm referring to. So they're better than halfway through.
Okay.
And they've looked at all of the coils that we ourselves, Peregrine, the mechanical contractor, and Brian, the design engineer, using the data that JCI provided, indicated that the coil may have been exposed to cold temperatures.
Okay.
And they have found no deficiencies in any coils.
Okay. I do like that you worked as a team to find out that there was refrigerant that went down as low as 19 degrees onto those copper coils that could have led to the bursting, the pipes actually given. As I said at the press conference in front of Winters on Sunday, I am mad for what is happening because, and we all are, you heard every single one of us. We are mad because we are the representatives, we are the voices of the parents whose students are not in this school. But I also want to give you guys credit. Yesterday, you guys all came together. The administration, you guys have a plan. You guys were able to finally find out what the issue is. Compared to the first time 3 weeks ago, we actually, with my background with public safety, you guys kind of used some of the, you guys found out, you neutralized the problem within 2 hours. We found out it went around 8, 10 o'clock. We were in that building, but we were in that building because of Wi-Fi, just by dumb coincidence. But you know what? The team got into Winters by 10:30. We were able to get the place a little bit cleaned up. Then you guys got together, you put the smart people together and you mitigated. Now we need to have a plan that needs to go forward. Responsibility will be handed out. We are gonna now continue the investigation plan. This meeting doesn't mean that we found out what the problem was. Responsibility will be, someone will be held responsible for this. We have too many parents and too many incredible children that have been affected by another coil, a manufacturer, or some type of mechanical error. But thank you very much for coming to the podium. Thank you very much for speaking to us in public. With that, I will turn it over. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's JCI that I have the question for, or Bill, or this would include John Cody as well. There were 5 coils that showed on your report that they were subjected to the cold temperatures. Is there a way that we can periodically look at those coils to ensure a second check to make sure that there's no damage and everything continues to look okay? Because those would be the coils that would be first to rupture, I believe.
So Joanne, two of those five coils are the coils that ruptured. So
Right.
There's three that I think you were referring to. They certainly can be checked. I would defer to Brian to advise what some reasonable cycle would be, how many times they need to be checked. It's not a significant task to check those coils. I don't know if Brian would want to speak to, the probability of them having a failure after having been inspected and not having found any deficiencies, but I don't think that that's a significant task to do if you choose to do that.
Okay, and while you're there, don't go away. The two rooms that are left undone, 1 and 2, if you would address 1, when the coils will be in to replace what broke, and 2, when your schedule, let everybody know what the schedule is of when the rooms will be back in place for service to our children. And 3, how the system will compensate to keep the rooms warm in the cold weather while there is no heating coil in it.
So I think the first two questions I can speak to, and I might defer to someone else for the third part. Those two rooms, it's our expectation that they will be completed and turned back to the school district by the end of the month. Coils are ordered. We're awaiting confirmation of shipping dates. We were told that the coil for the initial room should be about another 2 weeks out. The other coil, I'm sure, will be longer out, but we haven't received any confirmation on that shipping date. As soon as we do, I will share that with you. Mhm.
End
Yes,
of the
sir.
month, March, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because today, all right,
I'm sorry.
no
yes.
problem.
The second question,
Sure, since I'm right here. So the temperature sensors in the spaces are functioning, and if the temperature dropped, there'd be an alarm. If there was an indication that the temperature is dropping too much, fans could be put in to blow air in from other spaces. If we thought it was too cold yet, some little space heaters could be put in there.
who would be in charge of watching all of that?
Well,
The alarms?
the alarms, correct, yeah, yep.
So they would notify our custodial staff? Because at
Yep.
night it drops down to 61.
Yep.
Right, but during the day, those 2 rooms are left unheated. And we're putting our students back in, so are they gonna suck all the warm air out of the other rooms and put
No, I
it in
don't.
there?
Yeah, they seem to be staying pretty warm because we saw over the last couple of days, even without the heating coils in there, the space temperatures were staying up. But I think the alarm is what's gonna trigger something to go, somebody to go and say, okay, I need to do something in those rooms.
Okay, thank you.
Brian has the DOS systems.
Yeah, and then I don't want to get into another whole system.
Yeah,
There is a ventilation system that adds warm air, heated air that's circulating through the space as well.
Thank you.
One more time, because I am a bit confused. I thought when we came into this meeting, somebody from the team said that it was the air conditioning unit that caused these problems. And Chairman Chilel, you just said, we don't know what caused the problems.
Can I apologize if I said that?
I thought you said once we knew, where the problem came from.
Yeah, we don't know what.
Okay.
We
But
have
we
no
do-
idea why it went down to 17.
But we
degrees.
do know that it's the air is that what you're? Because,
Yes, we know it's the
Okay.
air conditioning system. We don't know why it performed the way it did.
okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. for
No,
bringing
thank
that.
you.
Anything else from the committee? Obviously, whenever, but I would like to turn it over to our superintendent. Can I make a say? Thank you. No, I want to thank you. No, we're all mad and we're all, what the heck? And you have done a great job leading this Lisa, I just want to personally say thank you very much for the work that you've been doing on this. So thank you.
Thank you. I do think that I have been given a crash course in mechanical engineering as an educator. But at this point, I want to tell the families and the students and the teachers and staff of Winters Elementary School, I want to thank you for your cooperation through this process. I want to assure you that not only did I attend every one of those meetings as your advocate, I also attended those meetings as a parent. And there have been many times that I've looked at that group and said, I will not do this until you can convince and assure me that everything that needs to be done for a safe return of our students can, will, and will continue to be done. So with that all being said, with the identification of the fact that it was an air conditioning system that froze those units and the blocking out of that air conditioning system, coupled with a secondary mitigation strategy of adding the glycol to the system, the safe antifreeze, if you will, to the system that keeps us safe to 0 degrees, plus the physical inspection of every single coil, specifically those coils that were impacted by cold temperatures based on the trend data, and the additional alarms that are going to be set forth throughout the building with multiple people. I feel as though they've met their obligation to ensure that we can bring students, staff, faculty back to that building, because there would not be a way for those. They've assured me that those pipes cannot be exposed to those same conditions because of these mitigation strategies. With that being said, I am hopeful that we can bring those students back to school, in-person learning, by Friday of this week. And I would also like to have a regular, until this is done, because this is a temporary mitigation. They do not still know why that air conditioner unit functioned the way it did when the controls were not asking for air conditioning. I think it needs to be a regular agenda item on this school committee agenda until we know, because at this point, we eventually have to get answers to why and how. So I would like that to be a regular school committee update, so we can continue to be informed and keep our public and teachers and their families, well, not the teachers' families, the students' families informed of situations, because it is paramount that we bring students into a safe, warm, and healthy building.
I agree. Okay, anything else from the body? That's,
I don't have a presentation.
yeah.
You said,
I-
she was doing a
Sorry, I'm not good with I'm not good with the English language as good as you. I meant to say, verbal presentation. Yes.
We'll see that we get those, all the available reports.
Yeah, I got it right down here, request for all reports to be produced and distributed to the whole committee.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That, not only is that going on there, but making Winters update per month until we feel, we have adequate information, that we feel as though we can, we're getting enough information. I think the team, one of the things that will benefit everyone is communication, open line communication.
And a coil review,
And
periodic coil. What would you call it? Inspection,
yes, they've agreed to that, right? So.
periodic coil
Yep.
inspection.
Yep, so, it looks as though if everything goes well, students will be walking into those doors on Friday morning. That's the game plan for, our school system. They do need tomorrow because one, the coils, not every single one has been inspected. We can point fingers. We asked for it 3 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, no matter what, it's been asked. wasn't done, was done, it's being done right now. So we don't feel safe putting anybody in that school until every single one has been looked at, and we have assurances that'll be done tomorrow. And then there's also just the cleanup, so that's why you're looking to go for Friday and not Thursday. Super,
Correct.
okay.
Well, the hygienist is coming.
Hygienist, that's right, not the digen, okay. No, Miss Connie, you had something?
Ms. Ramsey, are we able to have distance learning for the next 2 days?
I am happy to announce that Rhode Island Department of Education has approved additional days of distance learning for our students.
Thank you.
And we will also do our very best to work with a community partner to add additional time, potential time for the students to get some in-person touch points with their teachers.
The students who get services, have we been doing walk-in? Have we extended that out to the families for OT, PT and speech?
The students have been getting their virtual instruction. OTPT will be done on a makeup basis, a compensatory time. We
So
haven't-
they have not been
No.
receiving any of that? Because I thought it was reported to us that you guys were going to be working on a plan for walk-in services.
It was reported to you that we were going to be working on a plan, and that did not pan out because we didn't have the functionality of the building to go back to.
Okay. But we have other buildings we have a building here they could have used, that we used during COVID, and
That's correct.
we do
That
have alternatives.
that wasn't enacted.
What is the latest, notification the families are gonna get, about whether or not the students can't come back on Friday? Let's say worst case scenario, they can't come back on Friday. I think that we don't want to keep leaving these parents in stringing them along. So when are they gonna know by whether or not they can come back in person on Monday? I mean, on Friday?
As soon as I'm told, we have regular and ongoing meetings every single day, multiple times a day. I did send out a correspondence this evening with regard to their return. So I will tell them as soon as they know. I have a hopeful return date, and that's what I wrote in my letter, hopeful return date for Friday. And I think that as soon as Mr. Bryan and the team and everybody assures me that those coils have passed that inspection and the hygienist has given us the thumbs up that we're expecting, I will be able to tell the families that they can come in on Friday. If I don't get that, then they're going to find out that I can't yet. But everything that they've told me thus far, I have to trust these experts that they know what they're talking about at this point, and they're all trending toward a positive outcome pending those coil inspections.
All right. All set, Miss? You sure? Okay. All right, hearing nothing else,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Ms. Grant, seconded by Ms. Manolo. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Like that. It's almost like